Every morning of my childhood, before the sky was even grey, I would hear my mother in the next room, and one of the first sounds of the day was the small, particular sound of her pinning the white covering onto her head in the dark. She did it before she lit a lamp. She did it before she woke the little ones. She had taken it off only to sleep, and even then, some nights, she left it on. From the time she was a small girl until the day she is buried, an Amish woman keeps a covering on her head, and almost no one on the outside understands what that small piece of white cloth actually is. It is not a hat, it is not a fashion, it is a theology, a rank, and a whole life, pinned to her hair with a single straight pin. I grew up on the men's side of the church, looking across the room at the women's side, and I saw what that covering meant every day. Today, I am going to tell you the truth behind it, the whole rule, one thread at a time. The first thing you have to understand is what the covering actually is and why it never comes off. We call it the cap, the prayer covering. A girl begins wearing it young, and from that day forward, it is on her head through nearly every waking hour of her life. In many homes, it comes off only for sleep, and it is pinned back on before her feet even hit the cold floor in the morning. The covering is white, made of a fine, stiff organdy, ironed into careful pleats, and in some districts, a young unmarried woman wears a black one to church and only puts on the white after she is married. There are strings that hang down or tie under the chin, and the exact shape of that covering, the size of it, the way it sits, tells anyone who knows how to read it exactly which settlement and which church a woman belongs to. But the reason for it, the real reason, comes straight out of the Bible, out of the 11th chapter of 1 Corinthians, where it says a woman should have her head covered when she prays. And here is the piece that outsiders miss entirely. My people took that to mean she should be ready to pray at any moment of any day. She does not put a covering on to go to church. She wears it always because at any second she might lift her heart to God, over the stove, in the garden, at a sickbed. And she must never be caught unready. That is the first thing they don't want you to know. The covering is not about being seen by people. It is about always being ready to be seen by God. The second thing is underneath that covering, and it is the one that fascinates the outside world the most. An Amish woman never cuts her hair. Not once, not a trim, not a layer, not a single time in her whole life. It grows from the day she is born until the day she dies, often down past her waist, sometimes nearly to her knees, and that hair is her glory. That is the word for it, drawn from the same chapter of Scripture, that a woman's long hair is given to her as a glory and a covering of its own. So she never cuts it, and she never, ever shows it down. Every morning she parts it straight down the center, combs it back tight and winds it into a bun at the back of her head, and over that bun goes the cap. No stranger ever sees an Amish woman's hair loose. No neighbor sees it. In her whole life, the only person who will ever see that long hair let down out of its bun is her own husband, behind a closed door. Think about what that means. In a world like yours, where everything is shown, an Amish woman keeps the single most personal thing about her appearance hidden from every human being on earth except one. That long hair, brushed out at night by lamplight, is a private thing between a wife and a husband, and no one else. And the care of it is a quiet labor all its own. A woman washes that great length of hair and dries it by the stove, and the winding of it every morning, the parting and combing and pinning, is a ritual older than any of us, taught from a mother to a daughter the moment the girl is old enough to sit still for it. My sisters learned to put their hair up before they learned to read. There is no mirror needed after enough years. The hands simply know, and a little girl watches her mother do it in the grey light and understands long before anyone explains it to her that this is what a woman of her people does every day for the whole of her life. That is the second thing they don't want you to know. The most ordinary thing in your world, a woman's hair, is in mine one of the most guarded and intimate things she owns. The third thing is the dress, and there is a rule sewn into it that almost no one notices. Look closely at a plain Amish woman's dress, and you will see something strange. There are no buttons on it. None. The dress is held closed with straight pins, rows of them, or with hooks and eyes, but not buttons. And there is a reason that goes back centuries. Buttons were seen as decoration, as pride, as a worldly thing, And in the old country, they were tied in people's minds to the fancy buttoned coats of soldiers and the proud. So the plainest people put them away entirely. A woman pins her dress shut every single morning. Over the dress goes a cape across the shoulders and an apron at the waist, often of the very same cloth. And the whole thing is a single solid colour, a plain blue or green or purple or grey, chosen from the narrow range her district allows. No prints, no patterns, no flowers. The hem falls to a set length, the sleeves to a set length, all of it laid down by the Ordnung, the unwritten rules of her church. She wears no jewellery at all, not a ring, not an earring, not a necklace, not even a wedding band, because a plain woman announces her marriage by her covering and her cape, and not by any ornament. She wears no makeup, nothing on her face at all, and when she steps outside, over that white covering goes a stiff black bonnet, so that even the covering is covered. Every stitch of what she wears, she or her mother or her sister sewed by hand, or on that treadle machine, from cloth chosen within the narrow bounds her church allows. Before I tell you the fourth thing, which is the one that changed how I saw my own mother, do me one small favour. Subscribe so the next one finds you, and leave one word in the comments, just one, telling me where in the world you are watching from. It means more than the numbers on a screen for a channel like this. Because what comes next is the part the outside world gets most wrong of all. The fourth thing is about power, and it is the exact opposite of what you think. Yes, the church teaches that the man is the head of the home. They take it from the book of Ephesians, plainly, the way they take everything, that the husband is the head and the wife is to submit. A woman does not preach in our church. She does not stand up and expound the scripture. When the lot is drawn to choose a new minister, a sacred and trembling moment, her name is not among the ones in the running. From the outside, that looks like a woman with no power at all, and that is where outsiders are the most wrong. Because I watched my mother, and I am telling you, she ran that farm. She held the money from the roadside stand in a jar in the kitchen, and she decided how it was spent. The garden was hers, top to bottom, and that garden fed 9 of us through the whole year. The canning was hers, hundreds and hundreds of jars lining the cellar shelves. The difference between a family that ate well all winter and one that did not. And every bit of that was her knowledge and her labour and her authority. The matchmaking, the quiet steering of which young person might suit, which that ran through the women. And the birthing room, when a baby came, belonged entirely to the women, to the midwives of the community, and no man set foot in it or told them their business. When the whole church gathered to eat, hundreds fed off the benches. It was the women who ran that kitchen like a general runs an army, and no bishop dared step into it and tell them how. The quilting frolics, where the women gathered for a full day around a single frame, were not only for sewing. That was where the real news of the settlement travelled, where reputations were made and mended, where a mother learned everything worth knowing about the young man courting her daughter. And more often than not, the one teaching in the little one-room schoolhouse was a young, unmarried woman, holding 30 children of 8 grades in one room entirely on her own. A plain woman is not a woman with no power. She is a woman whose power runs through the whole daily life of the home and the community, quietly, without a title, without a pulpit, and often without a single word said out loud. My father was the head of our home. My mother was the neck, and the neck turns the head. That is the fourth thing they don't want you to know. The fifth thing is the cost, because I will not paint this soft, and the weight of that life is real. A girl's schooling ends at the 8th grade, the same as a boy's, and no further. She will very likely marry young, and once married, the children come, one after another, often many of them, because the church does not permit her to prevent it. The physical toll of that, a body that bears and nurses and works a farm for 20 years without a rest, is a hard thing, and I watched it in the women I loved. I watched my mother grow old before her time, her hands cracked from the garden and the wash water, her back bent from 1,000 loads carried up from the cellar, and never once in my life did I hear her complain of it. She rose before every one of us, and she lay down after every one of us, year upon year, and the world outside never saw a moment of it. The deference is real too. In 100 small ways, every day, a woman is expected to yield, to serve, to take the smaller place. And here is the part that binds it all together. the part that makes the covering more than cloth. The same church discipline I have told you about in other confessions, the ban, the Meidung, the setting apart, falls on a woman exactly as it falls on a man. If she will not keep the covering, if she cuts her hair, if she takes up the buttons and the prints of the outside world, the church can put her under the ban until she returns to the plain way. And so the covering and the uncut hair and the pinned dress are not just modesty, they are the visible sign that she is inside the church, under its protection and its rules both. To keep them is to belong. To lay them down is to leave. And the woman who leaves loses the most of anyone, because everything she is, her whole standing, her whole family, her whole world, is woven into that plain cloth. That is the fifth thing they don't want you to know. The covering is gentle to look at, but it holds the whole weight of the church behind it. The sixth thing is where all of it comes to rest, and it is the quietest and the heaviest of all. An Amish woman keeps her covering to the very end. On her deathbed, weak, her long white hair gone thin, she keeps the cap pinned on. She is buried in it, in a plain dress she may have sewn herself years before for this exact day. And on the other side of that, the moment a woman takes her covering off in public and steps out with her head bare and her hair showing, everyone who sees it understands at once, without a word, that she has left the church. There is no announcement needed. The bare head says it. I have seen it happen, and I have felt the silence that falls when it does, because that small piece of white cloth carries a woman's entire faith and her submission and her belonging all at once, and to remove it is to set all three of them down at the same time. That is the whole reason it never comes off through a lifetime, through work and childbirth and grief and old age. It is not vanity in reverse. It is the outward sign of an inward vow, worn every hour, so that a woman's body itself preaches the thing she believes without her ever having to say it. That is the sixth thing they don't want you to know. The covering is the smallest garment she owns, and it carries the largest meaning of anything she wears. I left that church, and my mother and my sisters did not. They are still there, still pinning that white covering on in the dark before dawn, and there is a distance between us now that I feel most sharply when I picture them doing it. I want to tell you what that costs, because you deserve to know why I say any of this out loud. When I left, I did not just walk away from a set of rules. I walked away from the women who raised me, and I know that when they pray under those coverings, they pray for me, and they grieve for me, and they believe I have put my soul in danger. That is a hard thing to carry, and people assume I am telling you this to mock it, to hold up the covering and the uncut hair and the pinned dress and say, look how backward they are. I am not, and I need you to hear it as plainly as I can say it. I love these people. I love my mother, who ran a whole world from behind a stove without ever once raising her voice. I love the strange, deep dignity of a woman who keeps the most personal thing about her hidden from everyone but the one man she gave her life to. There is a wholeness in it, a seriousness about God and about belonging, that your world and mine out here have almost entirely lost. And that, exactly that, is why the silence has to end. Because a covering can be a shelter and it can be a cage, and very often it is both at once. And the only ones who ever feel the difference are the women wearing it, who were raised never to say a word about either. I am not a woman, and I cannot speak for them. But I can at least tell you the truth of what I saw from across that room, so that the next time you see that small white cloth, you see everything that is really pinned underneath it. There is far more than I could fit into one sitting here. The things the women told me that I have never repeated, the way the rules of the covering change from one settlement to the next, the quiet lives of the aunts and grandmothers I grew up around. I wrote all of it down, everything I could not quite say straight into a camera. The full pages are waiting in the first pinned comment below. Take care of your people and look a little closer next time. I will see you in the next one.